it's Judy Warner. Thanks so much for joining us for our last and final podcast at DesignCon 2023. I am joined by illustrious expert Lee Ritchey, as well as Keshav Amla and Tarun Amla. Gentlemen, why don't you start and introduce each one of yourselves. Tell us a little bit about Avishtech and how you got particularly to the show, but where you are in the arc of your careers.
So I'll start. I'm Tarun Amla. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Avishtech. I've been with the company for a few years now. Me and Keshav, we co-founded the company, and I've been in the industry for a fairly long period of time, close to 30 plus years. Material side and mainly now in the software side, trying to solve problems which have plagued us for a number of years, the industry in general, and I thought I could contribute in conjunction with Keshav, who also happens to be my son, will work on solving these problems.
Yeah, and so I'm Keshav Amla. I'm the CEO and founder of Avishtech. So my father's background and mine really dovetailed. So I am also a mechanical engineer and a material scientist, and so his background is also in mechanical engineering, material science, and electrical engineering, and basically at the core of all of that is the computational side. So we felt we were kind of uniquely qualified to tackle some of these issues and had unique insights into them. And so we started this company a little bit ago. We've had our software in the market for the past 2 years now, and we're happy to be here at DesignCon. Good talking to you, Judy.
It's always good talking to you. Lee?
Well, I'm Lee Ritchey. I'm president of Speeding Edge, which is a consulting and training company. Been in the business since there was one, almost. I spent my career driving the high-speed side of things, and as we've run up the speed curve, the demands on PCBs have changed a lot. If anybody reflects back, when we first worried about high speed, it was nothing more or less than impedance, and that was it. And that gave rise to a protocol where engineers would tell the fab shop, design me a stack up that's 50 ohms, and that's all they did. And hidden in there was the manufacturing engineers at the fab shop took care of everything else, selecting the material, worrying about can you build it, all those things. Well, as we've gone up the speed curve, and this show is an example of that, impedance is probably the easiest part of the job, because now we have to worry about things like path loss, skew, and very, very high on that priority is power delivery, which has become extremely complex.
Indeed.
And because of that, the board SI engineer now has to take responsibility for doing the stack up. And all of a sudden, they got to worry about manufacturability, which they didn't have to before. And so there needs to be some way to do that, and there hasn't been until recently, and this tool these guys have is real good at helping you figure out if what you want to do will work. And that's, of course, why I'm associated with them right now, is this tool does a good job of telling you this will or won't work before you buy the board and it doesn't work.
And it gives you that insight, it sounds like, through the computational to give you that feedback through software and the computational side and all that material expertise and the amazing library of materials that you guys have built to give you that kind of intelligence, but it does it for you, which is lovely.
Yes.
Especially if you're an SI engineer that's faced with doing stack up and you're a little bit of a deer in the headlights, or just facing challenges around the skew, the power delivery, and all of those things have gotten increasingly more complex. So, Keshav, you've talked a lot about your Gauss SI tool. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about, one, the value of this show, particularly as you expose that tool and what it is and how it works, and the value specifically of Gauss SI for engineers?
Sure. So, basically the value of DesignCon is, of course, it's a very large community of engineers all across the entire electronics, landscape, basically. And to a point that Lee brought up, increasingly, you have to take that responsibility for the stack up. There was a time when maybe you just pushed that onto your fab shop, but now you have to take that responsibility. And the whole thing is that the kind of pitfalls that you face at the basic level, you need to be able to make that stack up, and you need to be able to handle the impedance side of things. And so, where our kind of broader offerings, our flagship offerings, they're meant to focus on all of the different aspects, the reliability, manufacturability, all of those things. But basically, everybody needs to be able to figure out impedance and trace widths and that side of the work. And so one example is actually a gentleman who stopped by our booth. He'd expressed his dissatisfaction in general that he'd been working for years trying to get some software in-house to handle this side of things for him. And he just wasn't able to because of the very high licensing costs and everything associated with the offerings out there. And so that speaks really well to the exact need that we sought to fill with this. And so this is Gauss SI, as opposed to our other offerings, is more for those folks who are really just looking at getting that ability to make their stack ups, to look at impedance and loss, and have a very accurate and easy to use environment for them to do that at a low cost of ownership. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we launched that. And so seeing that feedback at the show already, where since we just launched it about a week ago, it's really good to see that. And so I feel like that ties in very well with what we're trying to do here, because obviously we're our intent in everything we've developed and the innovations we're trying to bring is we're looking to build our business, and we're looking to also help the industry move forward. And I think the best way to do that is create things of real value.
So one thing, as a former board-focused person, and particularly I had a season of RF and microwave where the company I worked for had about $1.5 million of materials,
Right.
high-performance materials in their stock. There's so many. So how do you manage the variety of materials that are out there and your software's ability to have that kind of intelligence?
Right. No, for sure. Basically those are kind of the two key sides of it, right? One is the actual building of the computational engine that can convert from input data to the actual outputs that you care about. Mm-hmm. But then there's the first side of it, which is, if you go to a customer and you just have that environment, something that doesn't have that library, they'll tell you, well, where am I going to get this data from?
Yeah.
Am I going to have to be on the phone with 20 different vendors and folks had been working on getting some of these properties. Those are multi-year kind of projects because no one has a lot of that data. And so that's where basically, and Tarun can probably speak to that in terms of what we built in our library.
So yeah, that's the essential part, because when we launched the product a couple of years ago, we said you can fill in this data, and they said, well, we've been trying to get this data for years, so how do you do that? So that's where we built the intelligence, where you would take the information from the vendors and then build a computational tool which actually converts that into the properties they're talking about. And they're highly accurate. We actually built a lab just to support that, so that in case somebody said, well, your numbers don't match up, well, we are backing it up with the testing lab, a full facility to do that. So that's what happens. You take any material out there that's in our library, it's been vetted, it's been confirmed, and there have been times where we've gone back to the vendor and said, look, your numbers don't match. And these are big multi-billion-dollar corporations, but we've come back and said, well, yeah, it makes sense. We'll retest it and provide you a new set of data. So we're improving the quality of data in the industry through this. Not just, it's not for charity, obviously, it's helping promote a product, but it's also helping the industry move forward, because now they can get that data, which is vetted, has been tested, and it's coming direct from the vendor and has been vetted by us. So that's what we're helping out with, taking that information and converting it into a usable format.
That's phenomenal, because I've worked with some material vendors, and they've talked about the problems, especially when they release a new product, the accuracy of their own data sheets, and saying, well, it'll be about a year. We need the feedback from customers to give us intelligence. And I'm like, what?
Right.
But they said, well, we have bidirectional. It's understood. It's not like we're doing it in a blindsided way. But I'm like, that sounds a little crazy to me.
Yeah.
So I think you being able to give some of those material companies that feedback has to be incredibly helpful for them.
I would go further to say that they're making some of them honest.
Right.
There's at least one vendor who has deliberately faked their data to make
Really?
to make you buy it, and then
Oh,
your board
goodness.
doesn't do what you thought it was going to do.
Interesting. Well, that's frightening.
It is frightening, and they're not one of my preferred suppliers because of that. And this, what he just talked about, is making them do it right.
So keeping them accountable and
Yes.
yeah, that brings a lot of value. So, well, I really have appreciated getting to know you, and I've known Lee for a long time, and he's kind of a no-nonsense guy, as we all know.
Yeah.
But we love him for that, because he's not blowing smoke, right? He's given us straight whether we like it or not.
I'm from Missouri. You got to prove
The
it to
show
me.
me state, right? The show me state. So that's Lee Ritchey. And
That doesn't go over well in Germany, by the way.
I kind of know some people who do that. Quite, yeah. That rings a little true. Well, I do put some weight into it because Lee is the show me state, and Tarun, I think you are too, because those of us that have been in the industry a long time, we see the pain that arises when people aren't shooting straight, and it's like, geez, there's enough frustration out there without fudging data, and it's like, data sheets, and there's a couple companies out there that I appreciate that they actually measure the data, and then Samtech comes to mind, that they actually collect real world data and then put it in their sheet, and I'm like, gee, what a concept.
Yeah.
I'm like, shouldn't it be like that all the time?
Right.
And so it is a problem. So I
It
appreciate that
definitely
you're
is,
doing it that way. And it's very interesting technology. So any closing thoughts before I let you go? I know we're almost here at the end of the show. I know we're all exhausted. We're ready to pull up our tents, but any final thoughts? Has this been a good show for you? And you feel...
Yeah, I think been a really good show. Just like you said, we're getting near the end of it, and I think everyone's getting ready to head home, and been a bit tiring, but really good.
I just love the show because of the cross-section you have. This is the only one where you have material suppliers, board manufacturers, OEMs, equipment suppliers, test equipment manufacturers, software vendors all together. So it's very nice to catch up with so many people. So I just love coming to this show. It's, I think, my 20th or 22nd show or something like that. So
That's
Wow.
a good point. It's the only show that's like that,
Yeah.
Well,
integrated that way.
I personally, I resonate with that, and it speaks to the ecosystem idea, is that we have to work together as an integrated ecosystem with the speeds we're getting to. If we don't, we're just asking for trouble. And so I agree with you, and I appreciate the tenure both that Tarun and Lee has, and I've been around the block a few times, more on the board and assembly, but I think this show really does, where the chip meets the board.
It does,
Looks at
exactly,
it
yeah.
from a more systemic level, and I think that's so valuable. And thank you, and I think that you're bringing so much value to the ecosystem. So thank you all for joining me. It's always a joy to be with you. I wish you the best of success, and look forward to seeing your progress.
thanks,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Judy.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Again, this has been Judy Warner with Avishtech. Make sure you look them up. I'll put their website in the show notes, and I hope you'll take time to learn more about them. And till then, we sign off from DesignCon 2023. Thanks for joining us this week.